Hey, Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series, which will be coming out on Christmas Day. So, hey, if you're needing a break from some awkward family lunches or dinners at Christmas, here's BIS for you to brighten up your day. Or maybe this is a part of your Christmas traditions to watch an episode of the show. I don't know. So, hopefully you're having a good Christmas day, or maybe you're watching this after Christmas. It's up to you. And maybe you don't celebrate Christmas, in which case, here's just another BIS episode. Yay! Today we're going to be talking about 10, maybe an extra one will be thrown in there too, fan-submitted MOCs in this Bismas Christmas special episode, and then this will be the last episode of Bismas Christmas. If you submitted your stuff and you didn't get in this one, don't worry, they're still there. They can maybe appear in a future episode of the show, so hope is not all lost, don't you worry. But let's begin with some of these fan-submitted MOCs. The first one we've got today is by the Maestro, and this is Muska. I think this is so weird and wonderful. I very much enjoy this one here. A big old bug, crazy looking thing with thousands of eyes. Fantastic. It's hard to see how all those eyes are even attached, but I think it certainly would have been a really fun construction, just adding a bunch of different connection points and shoving eyes everywhere, because I guess that's kind of the aesthetic. It could be like eggs, it could be just some mutated creature or something, so it kind of makes sense that they've got this weird bulbous head with all these different things growing out of it of sorts, and I guess that's kind of just how it was built. It's just, stuff slowly spawning out of it in that sense. So yeah, a fantastic looking design, and it certainly makes for a really creepy look for this sort of sinister bug creature here. I also quite enjoyed the way that the back has been done using some of these Anika Zamisphere ball holder pieces here. To me, it kind of looks like sort of like a skeleton or like kind of ribs of sorts. And it kind of gives me this vibe that this is like a sort of zombie fly creature thing. And that's sort of like the husk on its back there that's just sort of being held together, and it's still alive. It doesn't really matter that half its body is missing. So yeah, certainly, I don't know, I get kind of weird zombie vibes for this. I don't know if that was the specific intention, but that's at least what I'm seeing. It's cool. And those wing pieces are awesome. They're from one of the early Ant-Man sets, and they're just such nice pieces. Whenever they pop up in any MOC on the show, it's just always nice to see. It's just such a versatile piece. If you've got some, they're just perfect for any kind of bug creature like this. So yeah, really, really well done. A fantastic looking MOC. On to the next one now. This is by Kenzie MOCs, and this is Witch of the Spring. So this uses a bit of spring green pieces, which is such a beautiful color. And we can specifically see the skull spider mask piece here in spring green, and that's being beautifully complemented by some of these larger claw pieces, which came on some hidden side sets, but appeared in other colors in other sort of Hero Factory and Bionicle sets and things. And they're great pieces. So it's nice to see those two pieces in conjunction with a couple pieces of spring green Hero Factory CCBS armor pieces there. And yeah, it's nice to know that there's not a lot of spring green pieces being used here, but you're still able to really get that sort of pop of green on this and still achieve a very nice look to this MOC. So yeah, great use of a very sort of subtle hints of spring green there, which is just such a pretty color. I also love the little dots pattern on the torso there. I love my Lego dots, so it's great to see them being complemented here very nicely. It kind of looks like some sort of crest on some sort of like medieval family or house or clan or something like that. Or maybe it's just some sort of decoration or necklace. I don't know. It could be many things, but that little subtle hint of purple is just quite nice. I like how that looks. I also quite like this trans neon green chain piece on the weapon here. Kind of looks like magic sort of coursing through this maybe like enchanted magical weapon, or I don't know, it just works. So I always like seeing, those trans chain pieces. I have a few in my collection and I've never touched them, but they're just cool. I feel like most pieces in translucent colors are always just a lot better. So it's nice to put them on the MOC there and just as a little sort of subtle compliment there. It's nice. How many times can I say subtle about this MOC? Too many. But yeah, love this one here. Very, very good. On to the next one. This here is built by Surge Productions, and this is Surge and Storm. Great to see on this sort of wolf companion to this MOC here, the use of the Bulk 3.0 headpiece here, because it certainly looks very sort of dog or wolf-like in that manner. And so, yeah, very smart to just put it onto a Hero Factory head. You can kind of see from some of these images the sort of frame underneath all that armor there. So maybe if you want to study that and kind of rebuild something similar, there you go. You can see exactly how it's done. But yeah, it's a pretty simple and effective way of making a wolf head. And, if it's already pre-built, why rework it and make one that uses all sorts of different pieces? Just do that. It gets the job done, and it looks very nice. I also like the Surge character here as well. I like the choice of using the Anika headpiece without the mask on it, and then complementing it with some little hints of lime green as well. The lime green really pops up against the black and the white on this mock here and just looks super cool. So yeah, really, really like how that looks. And then there's this cool photo here where we can see him sort of like on his little wrist there with this sort of like data pad or little holo pad or something there. Maybe there's some like mission readout, or just that's his phone and it's attached to his hand. It's an Apple Watch, It's a nice little integration there that kind of goes a long way. I always like seeing little accessories like that on mocks. So yeah, very cool. Quite a nice sort of sci-fi vibe to this character. It's really cool to see. On to the next mock now. This is Cricker the Deceptive by Benedict Puck. So quite a similar construction to the actual Cricker set. And I don't hate that, because sometimes little subtle revamps, there's that word, subtle, once again. I don't know what it is today. It's the word of the day. We're on Sesame Street. But little tiny things like that can just sort of slightly enhance an official set can certainly go a long way. I mean, we can see here the inclusion of some of the silver bone pieces that came on the G2 sort of skeleton wave of G2 Bionicle, and they've been integrated into the mock here. And then the like Rakshi head pieces on the shoulders as well. Little tiny stuff, but hey, maybe there's a set that's come out and there's just a couple little things on it that you don't like, but you think, hey, maybe if I swapped it out for these pieces, changed up the colors a little bit, or reworked a part of the set, I could make it way cooler. And then you've got a nice mock that you've built, and you're no longer going to stare at that set and think that part doesn't look good. You've made it look better yourself. So never forget that little tiny stuff like that can go a long way. And it's just great to see a slightly different take on Cricker here, because Cricker was such a unique and awesome set. So yeah, great to see it reimagined. DV Mox has built this next one here, and it's called Deep Down. Great to see a very simplistic but very effectively built jellyfish mock here, using some of these blue Borok head shield pieces, whatever you want to call those. It works surprisingly well at recreating the I don't know the words for the anatomy of jellyfish, but the sort of like blubbly part on the top of it there. It's very effective seeing them sort of built in a sort of like tube-like manner there. It makes for a great-looking design. Obviously, this is a digital mock. I believe I've seen somewhere, maybe it was on their Instagram story, I can't remember, but I thought I saw images of this where they were building it digitally, and they sort of had a different color scheme and were kind of changing up the colors in post. But I think they settled on a very nice color scheme there of blue and pink. And it's also nice to know that as you're building, maybe you've started off with a specific color scheme, but as you're going, you've realized, it's just not working. There's nothing wrong with changing up the color scheme, or heck, if you really want to and you're good enough with Photoshop or your whatever kind of program on your computer, maybe you can just edit it and just change up the colors that way and get a unique result in that manner. So yeah, pretty cool, and a lot easier to do that if you're building digitally as well. So yeah, nice. But I do really like the pink and the blue here, really works well. And of course, all those tentacles make sense too for a jellyfish. Always great to see those pieces being included there. And some really nice edits here too, with this nice sort of underwater background here. I think it complements the mock very well. So lovely stuff. Caleb Rudolph has built Caxus. This mock here is a little bit more sort of customized, as we can see here with the sort of faceplate piece. He's done a nice looking paint job here and almost sort of added a bit of like texture to it. There's something about it that looks very much like a sort of junk bot of sorts, like some old sort of rusted out parts being used to build this robot here. So a nice paint job here, and a few other parts of this mock have been painted or modified as well. Now, not everyone likes to paint and modify their pieces, but if you can get interesting results like this, where you're sort of like weathering it, adding like almost sort of texture to it, or giving it a completely different vibe that you maybe couldn't really achieve with pre-existing Lego pieces, then hey, it's certainly worth doing it. You can get some interesting results with it for sure. I do like the asymmetry on the feet on this mock here. The fact that one is red and one is one is black. Other parts of this mock are blue. You may not recognize him because of the red foot, but it is the same mock, I promise. But yeah, there's something about that gives it, again, that sort of more junk-like look that maybe he had two black feet at first, but one of them got damaged or something, so he had to modify it with some new pieces from the junkyard or something like that. That's at least the vibe I get from this here. So it's a cool idea, and a nice toe design as well to use some of those clip pieces there, and then the Exoforce robot claw pieces as well as the actual sort of posable toes there. It's a pretty effective design. So yeah, a nice little mock here with some interesting customization to it. Nicely done. On to the next one. This is by Artie Quill, and this is Teridax Spirit of Destruction. This is a very unique and different take on Teridax, and I like that. There's something about it that feels really sort of... it's kind of like certain characters in the Marvel Universe. You've got things like the Living Tribunal and other characters that represent very kind of broad, large concepts, and they're sort of like personifications of an idea. And I like the idea that this really sort of like wavy, unique form for Teridax, maybe in this sort of alternate universe or just a different take on Teridax, he's extremely powerful and is a sort of like force or concept or idea, and this is the only way that he can take form in this weird sort of squiggly, unknowing kind of look to him. It's different. It's interesting. It also kind of reminds me of a biblically biblically accurate angel. It's a surprising tongue twister that I wasn't expecting. You're seeing it on your screen right now. I think that in certain interpretations of the Bible or something, if you read it, this is how it's supposed to look or something like that. Kind of reminds me of that, just because it's got weird kind of wavy arms, and it's very different from, like the sets for Makuta Teridax there. So yeah, I love that idea of going a little bit more sort of out there or obscure, and making these sort of really grand, almost godlike looking characters, because it's certainly a departure from the norm, and sometimes your weird and wonderful stuff can be really exciting and really cool. So I like that. I also enjoy the head design here. There were a couple different pictures in the submission of it with sort of like an alternate mask that's got the Teridax mask with some weird flappy bits on the side there. I don't know how those are connected. Maybe they just connect with friction. I'd have to try that, but it's a nice looking design for sure. And then some other ones with a slightly different head design there. So I like the fact that maybe the head can sort of shapeshift and move and stuff like that. I believe in canon the Makuta could shapeshift, so hey, maybe that's what he's doing, and this is just a different shapeshifting form for Teridax there. That's cool. Yeah, I like that. I also like the sort of like waistcloth area on this mock, seeing some more of those skull spider headpieces in silver this time, just sort of nicely attached on the side there, and then how they kind of flow forward with some other pieces to form this sort of nice, like regal looking cloth with some ornate detailing on it and stuff like that. It is a nice sort of focal point for this mock. I quite like that. Might be my favorite part here, so pretty cool. Lovely work at reimagining Teridax. Let's move over to Sasquatch Knight, and this is by Speedhog99. So this uses one of the headpieces from one of the more, I would argue, obscure Chima Ultra Build sets. Don't see too many people using pieces from this set or using that head specifically. So it's nice to see some Chima Ultra Build stuff getting some love, because there's such an obscure part of construction that I think is just so exciting and so cool to see. So I always love it when people use pieces from those sets here. I also like the inclusion of a bit of red on this mock here, because the sort of gunmetal and black of the color scheme of this mock makes sense for a sort of gorilla-like character. But that little hint of red, I don't know, it kind of... What it reminds me of is Optimus Primal from Beast Wars, but it's that red that I think really pops with this mock, and just makes it that much more impressive and cool. So yeah, it's a bit of fun. So a nicely constructed sort of ape-like character here that utilizes your prefab CCBS pieces very nicely. So well done. On to the next one. This is by Matt Goldberg. This is Wavemaster Sixgill. So the description on Flickr here says, Captain of the Depths and frequent saboteur of Hero Factory's underwater facilities. This is just such an appropriate mock for the Hero Factory universe, because I think what made Hero Factory so different from Bionicle was a lot of kind of quirky and unique and slightly silly characters sometimes, which Bionicle was a lot more sort of like grounded and serious, which both are fine. I love that, but that distinct difference with Hero Factory can be really fun to kind of play in that world, you know? And this is just so appropriate for that world. The fact that he's this unique sort of like almost hammerhead shark guy, and he's got like a cape. He just seems like this powerful overlord with... I could see him in like a Saturday morning cartoon or something. He's just fun. I love it. Some of the nice sort of techniques on this, I think, include the Chima Ultra Build torso piece here in gunmetal. Now, typically that can hold one of the Zamisphere pieces in the sort of like heart area there, but instead Matt has just put one of these printed shield elements from the 2008 castle fantasy era wave of sets. And I love that there. It's a great way of just filling in that gap and just seems very appropriate for this sort of pirate-like character here. And it also kind of sort of reminds me of the fact that heroes always had their hero cores, which were typically on the center of their body. And it kind of looks like maybe he's... I don't know, maybe he was an ex-hero and he's turned to piracy, and he had a hero core there, but he sort of like replaced it with his own pirate sigil instead. It seems, fantastically appropriate for the Hero Factory world and the sort of way that those characters are often constructed. So a very, very clever part use there, or just a clever way of building to fit into the world. I also love the head design here, the fact that it looks so hammerhead shark-like, and using some of those Technic panel pieces, some of the really small ones there to achieve that look is gorgeous. And the jawblade head pieces here, the fact that they're obviously very shark-like seems very appropriate for the theme of this character. But I also kind of like the idea that maybe he has slain some sharks and is wearing their mechanical corpses as sort of like shoulder armor. Now, I know sharks don't necessarily have skeletons as much, or that maybe that part specifically wouldn't be. It would just sort of be the teeth area there. But in the Hero Factory world, anything's possible, so I like that. Or even if he's just sort of styled some metal to look a bit more shark-like, it's appropriate. So a very nice touch to put that on the mock there. Really, really cool. The tail's also super nice. And then seeing some more of the sort of similar look with some of those keener black fin pieces there on his elbows just completes that aquatic look. It's so, so cool. So lovely work there, good sir. Let's move over to the second last mock. This is by Trevgard, and this is Axaith. I love this. The way that the torso sort of flows into the lower legs there. There's those sort of like triangular patterns there. Just some beautiful integration, the way that they sort of butt up against each other. The triangles kind of meeting up with other triangles there just makes for some beautiful sort of shaping overall. It's really nice. And then we've got a few more sort of triangular shapes on the head, specifically on the chin. And I love the fact that the eye is just that sort of block of red there. It looks really nice. I also love the scythe. Obviously kind of seems very fitting with his name, but the way that the blue has been integrated into the actual blade there just looks very appropriate. Kind of ties in with the body and stuff like that. And, a little bit of integration with, similar techniques or colors or armoring on the mock and then putting it on the weapon is always appropriate. So, yeah, really, really well done. It just is a very well-shaped mock with some cool shoulder pads as well. So, a lot to love about this one. On to the last one. This is by Patrick Biggs, and this is Autumn's Light. I adore this. I remember when this got released and then reposted by LEGO on their Instagram. Congratulations, Patrick. It was just a sight to behold at first, and it still is even today. Something that I think is certainly of note with this mock is the deer itself is just got that primarily black color scheme with the subtle hint of white on the eye there. One more to the subtle counter. If you're drinking eggnog this Christmas, take a drink. I've said subtle again. But complementing that pure black color scheme with the hints of Keat orange, olive green, and all sorts of beautiful autumn colors just looks so pretty and so striking as well. It's nice to know that some of those darker colors can be beautifully complemented by brighter colors as well. So, hey, maybe you've got a mock that you're building right now and it's just looking a little bit too sort of monotone in its color scheme. Add the brightest color you can and it's probably going to look really nice, especially when you can tie it back to kind of like plant pieces or nature and stuff like that, because look at it, it's just such a beautiful result. I believe these were from Brick Fair. I don't know, but I know when I was at Brick Fair, Patrick and a bunch of other people were getting some lug bulk orders as a part of, I think it was Bionicle, I think it was. But when they were doing so, they were getting a lot of these different plant pieces. So one, it's really nice to see some of these pieces being put into action. But also I think it's just interesting to note that, people like Matt, people like Patrick, some of those really like A-list good solid builders who always build incredible stuff, they're favoring some of those plant pieces. So, hey, grab some plant pieces. I mean, some of the orange leaf pieces that are on the antlers of this mock were on Pick-a-Brick not that long ago. And then I believe some of the star pieces and flower pieces that are being used on the trees on the base there were also in Pick-a-Brick in maybe some slightly different colors, but close enough. And colors and pieces vary on Pick-a-Brick walls across the world, so it might be a bit different for you where you live. But these pieces aren't inherently hard to come by. So it's something you could very easily do. And Patrick's been playing a lot with nature recently in some of his mocks. I mean, he builds a lot of deer and adds a lot of leaf pieces and things onto stuff. So certainly something to play around with yourself, because he's been doing it very, very well. So maybe it's something to play around with here. I've mentioned this stand a bunch, the sort of base that this mock is sitting on. I implore you, build more awesome stands for your mocks, people, because man, look how good this looks. I mean, the deer on itself would look fantastic even without the stand, but the fact that it implies this sense of scale, that it's maybe this godlike creature that towers over landscape that humans live on below, is a really fun image, and just this sea of autumn leaves underneath it there. It just looks pretty. So yeah, just such a smart, cool idea. And it's just a nice way of kind of holding the mock together and making sure it supports itself and doesn't really fall over too much. So just fantastic. But that's it for this slightly longer edition of the Bionicle Inspiration series. Merry Christmas. Hopefully you're having a good time today, or had a good time, depending on when you're watching this. And I'll see you in the future with more Bionicle Inspiration series episodes and some other Bionicle and system-related videos too. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to check the links in the description to see my social media, some of the stuff that these builders have done. You can also see there's links in the description to all their stuff, so be sure to check that out. Thank you very much for watching. Happy building, and bye for now.